Okay. All righty. Hi all. I am just giving people just a few seconds here to join. But welcome to the PAME webinar. I'll introduce it in just a moment. Let's see where numbers are slowly creeping up here. Okay, I will go ahead and start here. So welcome to this PAME webinar titled "It Takes a Village: How Family-Led Organizations Are Changing the Face of SUDEP Prevention." I'm Gardiner Lapham and have been part of PAME since its inception. As many of you know, PAME is a collaborative effort driven by families, healthcare providers, researchers, and epilepsy organizations. PAME's mission is to convene, educate, and inspire all stakeholders to promote understanding and drive prevention of epilepsy-related mortality. And I'm honored to have the opportunity to moderate this webinar today because it recognizes the progress being made in driving SUDEP awareness and shines a light on the importance of families in driving this change. When my son Henry died from SUDEP 15 years ago, the phenomenon was considered exceedingly rare and few people were willing to talk about it. There was some research taking place, but there really were no U.S. organizations solely focused on SUDEP awareness and no obvious way for families to engage and be part of a solution. Thankfully, times have changed, and now I look around and see a SUDEP landscape transformed with national organizations prioritizing SUDEP and a growing grassroots effort made up of individuals and smaller organizations. There are several family-led organizations that are driving awareness and understanding at both local and national levels. It's powerful to see such growth in our community. Exciting because there is real opportunity for change, yet sobering because it's reflective of the true burden of SUDEP and just how many lives it's touched. Today, we will hear from 4 individuals representing different family-led organizations across the country. No two are alike, but they all share a common purpose and a singular drive to save other individuals from the worst outcome of epilepsy. Each speaker here will give about a 5-minute overview of their organization, its founding story, its mission, and key areas of focus. We will leave time at the end for dialogue and questions. So please submit your questions in the question box. Let's see. Thanks, Anne. Also, feel free to use the chat to connect with other attendees. And in case you're interested, a recording of today's discussion will be made available within 24 hours. And before we dig in, I really and sincerely want to thank SK Life Science for sponsoring this webinar and being a significant partner throughout the year, and especially on SUDEP Action Day, which is 2 weeks away from now on October 18th. Okay, so I think what I'll do is, we have one more slide. There we go. I'm going to quickly just introduce the 4 panelists that we have, and then they'll come on one by one in this order. So first we will hear from Heather Kuhn, and Heather is the executive director of the Cameron Boyce Foundation, where she oversees operations and leads strategic programming to honor the legacy of Cameron Boyce. Heather has a doctorate in public health and master's in environmental science. Then after Heather, we'll hear from Edena Perry. Edena is a minister, poet, and author. She and her family established the Maryland-based Kayla Ross Perry Memorial Foundation in honor of their daughter after her sudden and tragic passing. Kayla, I guess, sorry. And next is Paul Robinson, and he's the president of the Jenna Robinson Charities. He and his family established this organization in honor of their daughter, Jenna. And Paul has been an outspoken speaker and advocate for people with epilepsy, especially in the state of Mississippi. And then finally, coming from Chicago, is Tom Stanton, who many of you probably already know, and he's the executive director of the Danny Did Foundation. Tom is also the amazing uncle of Danny and has been at the forefront of so many local and national SUDEP efforts for well over a decade. Okay, so these are our 4 amazing panelists. Heather, I'm going to turn to you. I should say some of us have slides and others don't. We really hope to make this casual and a dialogue, but I want to give everyone a chance to really tell their story. So Heather, take the stage, please.
Thank you, Gardiner. And my name's Heather. I'm the director of the Cameron Boyce Foundation. And something I think that sets me apart from this panel is I am the only one here that's not related to the person that the charity is in honor of. And well, I think that's significant is because my background is in public health. I've worked for years in that field. But in coming to this foundation, I knew very little about epilepsy. I knew even less about SUDEP at the way beginning. So I think there's this common theme that I think we're going to talk about of how under-researched, underfunded, and misunderstood SUDEP is and how much work is left to be done. So I hope I can bring that perspective to this outside of the personal one. The Cameron Boyce Foundation came about from the tragic loss of Cameron Boyce in 2019. He suffered from epilepsy. He didn't have many seizures. The family was actually, unaware of the dangers of SUDEP. And really didn't understand a lot of what could have happened. And he passed when he was only 20 years old. And in tribute to Cameron and the responsibility that the family felt was to really give back to this community and to help others understand the risk, help others understand what epilepsy was, help others understand what SUDEP was, and to really honor their son's amazing heart, compassion and desire to give back. In his short life, he gave back so much already, and they wanted to keep that going. So they started this foundation in 2019, literally a few months right after, because they wanted to start collecting donations. So that was started then. The mission has sort of evolved and we're finally kind of landed on where we are. It's only been 4 years, but it's the pandemic years. So they feel like 2 of them vanished somehow. And our mission is to honor his legacy by curing epilepsy and ending SUDEP, a lofty goal, I know, through funding, research, education, and awareness. So we're very tight. This is our role, just epilepsy. We're very excited to kind of move forward with this. I think something that makes our foundation unique before I kind of jump into what our programs are is that our huge audience and fan base are based on Cameron. So that is, over 1.5 million people on social media, and not just followers. These are people who really feel that they knew Cameron, are really engaged. The foundation now has that same support. Most people came to us not because of epilepsy, they came to us because of Cameron specifically. And that puts us in a really unique place to educate and make others aware, because as we all know someone with epilepsy, and now we're really making sure that kind of the mass population understands this disease. So that makes us really unique. What also makes us unique is these kids who are initially Cameron's fans are now young adults. And so we have this kind of captured audience of young adults, which really drives a lot of what we do. So that's kind of our background. To move in what we've been focused on over the past 3 years, research is one arm, and we partner with Cure Epilepsy to do this. And we've been funding SUDEP research for 3 years. This year, we'll be working with them again, and we're very excited in a slightly different capacity, but still think it's extremely important to elevate research, get more people in the field of understanding SUDEP, and to push that forward, both in terms of funding it, but also educating everyone on why it's important. A big chunk of what we do, really, because of what I said before of our huge audience, are education and awareness campaigns. And we do this a lot through our campaign called Now What? And the concept behind Now What is saying things like, I've been diagnosed, now what? I'm going to college, now what? I want to be intimate with my partner, now what? So you could put that in front of anything, and we're not afraid to go there. And to really get people to, tackle, what kind of a guidepost of what they should be doing moving forward. A lot of frequently asked questions, a lot of education around what to ask your doctor about SUDEP specifically, which I know we've shared with PAME, and they'll share out, I think they already have. And so, that's kind of our big education campaign. And we put out probably every month a new sort of education and awareness campaign around that. The third arm that we work on is really providing support to young adults who have epilepsy. Again, one piece, since this is really focused on SUDEP, is getting them to really know about SUDEP, arm them with information about SUDEP, and really direct questions to ask your physician, your parents, to advocate for yourself so that you understand the risks. We also have an online support group, which is about 1.8 1,800 strong now, and it keeps growing every day. I think we had 50 new people join today. And so we're working on kind of figuring out how to, curate that and make it a little bit more specialized for our groups because it keeps growing. And we also understand that we can't do any of this, especially because we're on the newer side, without really engaging with young people who are living with epilepsy. So we formed a community advisory board last year, and it has been amazing and active. And, we have been working really hard to work with them to elevate their voices and put it out there. And along those lines, another piece is to make sure people understand what epilepsy is to make sure there's representation in media. And so we have a pretty large TikTok account as well. And instead of just highlighting disaster stories about people with epilepsy or just highlighting a seizure, let's say on a TV program, it's really young people living with epilepsy. And who are you? What's your life like? Not just about epilepsy, but really elevating the story as a human being. So we're doing that, as well as looking into more ways to get characters with epilepsy in media. And so that's kind of us in a nutshell. I think I went way under my 5 minutes, but I'm very excited to answer questions at the end. And
thank you, Heather. That's awesome. And Cameron was an amazing man, and you all are creating an incredible legacy. And anyway, I am sorry that you're doing the work you're doing and that the Boyce family is here with us, but grateful for all the contributions, because you've certainly been able to, tap into a platform that, this issue has not been able to tap into before. So
and we're grateful for you guys too, for giving us this forum and letting us learn from all of you as well. And I'm really excited to meet everyone else on the panel.
All learning. So thanks, Heather. Edena, you're on mute.
Okay, let's start again. So my name is Edena Perry. I don't have a slide, but I wouldn't mind a picture. Being able to share screen. Can I share screen?
You should be able to share a screen, yes.
All right. I don't see what I need, so I'll keep going. Okay, so my name is Edena Perry, and our foundation is called the Kayla Ross Perry Memorial Foundation. A little bit of a background. Our daughter Kayla was diagnosed with juvenile myoclonic epilepsy at age 11. We felt as parents, we were very in tune with the dangers, the concerns, and she was able to live her life, pretty much the way she wanted to. And so, being involved in various activities. And at age 26, which was 6 years ago, she passed unexpectedly from SUDEP. Oh, thank you. Thank you. After we got, over the shock of the fact that we weren't made aware of what SUDEP was from the healthcare community, my husband and I talked about what could we do. Often we can complain about what didn't happen, what should have happened, but how can we be a part of the solution? And so we first started a scholarship in Kayla's name at our church. But after that beginning, we thought there's something else we can do. And so we actually formulated the Kayla Ross Perry Memorial Foundation in 2019, with the mission being to raise awareness in our community. Like, start right where we are, start right in Maryland, start in DC and Virginia, with raising awareness, providing scholarships for freshman students. And then because Kayla was a singer and she was a poet, we wanted to incorporate things that she actually enjoyed. So not only do we give scholarships, not only do we raise awareness and have worked real closely with the Epilepsy Foundation, we also sponsor creative arts events. And so the education piece is anyone who wins a scholarship or participates, they have to write an essay. And so we felt we were starting at that same age, the young adult age, where we can help someone learn one person at a time. And each year we do what we call K-Day, which is kind of a health awareness event. We had one before COVID, and since then we've done them virtually, but it is a combination of, we provide information on seizure training, on we provide inspirational music, poetry, cooking, Zumba and exercise. So it's kind of like a health fair, but the goal is that anyone who is participating, listening, watching, they are finding out things about epilepsy. And so it is a volunteer based. Our board is not paid. We do this in addition to our full-time jobs. And so we are committed to, again, if one more person knows about SUDEP, then we feel that we're meeting our mission. If young adults are not afraid when they see a person have a seizure, we feel we're doing our job. And so we are planning to probably seek grant funding for some other programmatic services. But right now we look forward to K-Day each year, which is around Kayla's birthday. And that's kind of like our background.
Thanks, Edena. I mean, seeing her pictures, she's just a strikingly beautiful girl, and so sorry for your loss. And it's just amazing to see what you guys have created in a short period of time to honor her memory. Thank you. Paul, thanks for being here. Can you tell us about what you're doing to honor Jenna and how you're helping the cause?
Absolutely. So Jenna, to know about the cause, Jenna, you'd have to know Jenna just a little bit. And she was a very popular person on the coast. She had a business that she performed. She was a dancer. She sang, she acted, and she loved being involved, nonstop, busy all the time. And so Jenna, through her character business that she had taken probably thousands of pictures with young people on the coast and everything adults alike, because she was said that was just what she did with her little business. She was 17 at the time she passed away. Of course, it was SUDEP. I didn't know what SUDEP was till the week after she passed away from it. My wife knew what it was, and actually Jenna knew what it was, according to Mark. They had just been sort of reviewing it. And it's funny because, just go back and say about the performing arts version of things. So the day Jenna passed, we had friends of ours that were CPAs, and they immediately filed paperwork to get a scholarship fund going. And unbeknownst to us, it just, they did this, and it was gracious and all them to do it. And they told us about it that evening because it was funny, but they had gotten in the account number with the IRS the same day, and they couldn't wait to show us the account number because they said, first of all, that doesn't happen. You never get a nonprofit approval on the same day. And secondly, but it also, the account number contains her date of birth, which was kind of funny. So look for signs and things. So the day after Jenna passed away, I had to go to the funeral home. Okay. And luckily had friends go before us and try to take care of some of the stuff. And so what's worth noting is when I went into the funeral home, I need to back up. that morning when we were getting up, and we hadn't slept, of course, and everything, we just sat up all night. And when we got up, my wife just collapsed, and I collapsed with her. And you're looking for purpose, and you cannot go any lower, right, at the time. So we kept thinking there's got to be a meaning, there's got to be a purpose here. There's got to be a design to all this. So when I went into the funeral home, an old friend of mine met me at the door, and he was, of course, giving his condolences about Jenna, but he also wanted to tell me, he said, there's got to be something going on with epilepsy and seizures. He said, Jenna's death is the 4th death this week. This little funeral home in Biloxi, Mississippi is handling from a seizure death.
Wow.
And, so it at that time, we knew there had to be a different focus. And one of the things we always thought about epilepsy, Jenna passed away in 2017, April of 2016, at the age of 17 years old. And one of the things we always wondered about that time was, despite all the online presence and everything, it was really hard to get information out of people. It was actually hard to get information out of neurologists and doctors. And we were amazed at how many doctors really did not know epilepsy. That astounded us. As time goes on, it makes more sense to us, but we're constantly amazed at how many doctors just don't know about the ins and outs of epilepsy still. So going forward, at the time Jenna passed away, shortly before that, she had been offered a full contract for acting, singing, voice, and modeling. And by the way, Cameron Boyce, they were the same age, and Jenna loved Cameron Boyce. That was, she constantly pointing out that he was a dancer as well. Okay, just to let you know. And so we went ahead that day and decided it had to be a charity, because Jenna had this very giving heart, and foundations have their place, but there were some angles we wanted to take by making it a charity instead of a foundation. And this, like I said, this all evolved on day 2. And so since that time, what happened locally was that we found out people needed seizure monitors, and we're like, okay, we can do that. We can do that. And along the way, met Tom Stanton, and Tom and the folks at Danny Did have been such a huge help, and like they always have been. I know they've been such a leadership role for things, but we went ahead and just started locally, just funding seizure monitors, and basically just giving them when people needed them. One of the things we noticed is you'd have families that were fairly decently well off. They have 4 children, and one of them was in cheerleading, one of them was in soccer, one of them was in dance. And it was very often that one of the siblings had to give up something for the child with epilepsy to get what they need. And we just thought, okay, while we're around, we didn't see any need for that to happen. So so far, all the devices and everything that we've done has been without any family participation in the amount. I'm not saying we won't have to do that in the future, but we've been blessed so far to be able to have it like that. So we have a couple of dozen volunteers. It started with just some friends of ours, but it's grown. So we call them our dynamic dozens. And one of the things we have found out is that also too, when somebody loses somebody as a result of SUDEP or epilepsy, they also want to do something to memorialize. So we very often set them up. We've already done all the work. We have our organization started, and they can basically come up with their own group that's part of Jenna Robinson Charities. and everything, as long as it goes towards the charity, and we'll try and focus it where they want it to go. So we still give away the performing arts scholarships because that's what Jenna did. And our words for all of this, always, our phrase has been that, we here to, we want to prevent SUDEP, and we want to get answers to epilepsy. And we also joined CURE, and very grateful CURE. I think CURE has been a fantastic. I mean, what results y'all have gotten are amazing to me in such a short time that you put all that together. But with Jenna, we wanted to give the performing arts scholarships because that's what she did and that's what she loved. She didn't spend too much. She never tried to hide her epilepsy. She just never dwelled on it and never really talked about it. And I think all of us know people with epilepsy. This is the way they do. They just want to go through life and they want to achieve that normalcy that they all have. But we always say, our aim is always been to provide awareness, education, research, prevention of SUDEP and epilepsy, and to make dance and performing arts accessible for all who desire it, regardless of ability, culture, or economic status. That way, we recognize what Jenna lived for, or what she lived with, and celebrate what she loved and lived for as well. So we have also spread out. We have been helping people acquire seizure dogs, and we have found a good fundraising tool in churches. And so the last one we helped with, People's Church actually raised the money for the seizure dog. We were able to send the family to Ohio for nearly 2 weeks to get the training. And, they have to, the whole family has to go and learn with the seizure dog, and where everything is uniform and correct. And so we have been able to fund those trips and help fund these seizure dogs. It's just a work in progress for us. So we're always just grateful to participate with all of you. Always enjoy hearing what everybody is doing because we are learning nonstop from what everyone is doing. But we are staying with our corner of Mississippi. So far, we've been able to give out monitors and help with seizure dogs across the state of Mississippi. We've also had requests and filled them from the states of Alabama and Louisiana as well. And so that's where we're at. We just plan on trying to pull up the South for everybody. Okay. and we'll continue to do that and participate in any way we can and go from there.
Thank you, Paul. You all are doing an amazing job. And it's so interesting when we put together this webinar, I didn't really think that the 3 speakers would be, parents of and, working for the foundation of kids in their, early adult years that were performers. Like all 3 of you, it's kind of a really unusual coincidence that
it was great. And at the time Jenna passed away, there was a law firm negotiating a contract for her with a really large company, and it was acting, modeling, singing, and she did not want to model. She wanted to sing and dance and act, and that was it. But
I think that Jenna and Kayla and Cameron all loved the stage, and now all of your organizations are amplifying these messages. It's just sort of an interesting coincidence.
It is a coincidence for sure.
And then there's little Danny, who was only 4 when he died, and who knows what he would have done, but I've learned over the years, like an incredibly happy, full life for his short life, and has inspired so many of us. Anyway, Tom, welcome. you really need no introduction, but tell us a little bit about Danny Did and what y'all are up to today, and maybe remind us of when you were founded and why.
Yeah, thanks, Gardner. Yeah, happy to be with everybody today and have the opportunity to talk about Danny. Is always an honor and a privilege. And I think Gardner's comment about the foundations on this panel gravitating towards the passions of the people that inspire them resonates with Danny Did too. Our tagline is "Please go and enjoy your life." Danny Did, and it's really become his legacy that pushes us forward to keep going. 14 years in now since he's passed. So Danny passed away when he was 4.5 years old in 2009. And he was the third of 4 kids. So he had an older sister, Mary Grace, older brother, John, and a younger brother, Tommy. And they were all 2 years apart. So he was kind of perfectly fit into this quartet and really ran around with them and loved his family more than anything. So he was treated for epilepsy for about 2.5 years. He was diagnosed when he was 2 years old, and in that whole duration, and even after he had passed, nobody had mentioned the risk of SUDEP. And it occurred to his parents, Mike and Marianne, that this was really a huge blind spot that they should have known about, and that they wanted other parents to know about. And this is just, I think maybe you can see this photo of Danny's parents and a few pictures of him. But, losing him in such a sudden way, overnight, literally overnight, really pushed us to move with urgency. And I know that urgency is shared by other family-led organizations that just have a different experience to draw from. It really fuels you in a very unique way, I think, to bring change. So it wasn't long after he passed that the Danny Did Foundation was formed. And our mission at the outset, and still today, was really simple, and that's to prevent death caused by seizures. It's very ambitious, but we wanted to be very straightforward, very bold, and that's what we work towards. And we do that with kind of 2 main goals in mind. One is just the awareness of the risk of SUDEP, because so few people knew of that term in 2009, 2010. That really kind of was our point of focus. And we do that now kind of full steam ahead through public awareness campaigns. But the reality that still today, a lot of parents or adult patients don't hear about this risk from their provider. We fill that role through our own kind of education and counseling that we do with families and patients one-on-one. And we do that with the full acknowledgement that it would be best if patients and parents heard about SUDEP from their provider, their doctor, their nurse, whomever. But until that happens all the time, one of our primary purposes is to fill that gap. In terms of the awareness campaigns, we've tried everything: radio, television, billboards. We even have a bus. We do airport billboards. We just started. I was telling Gardner, we have a garbage truck now that has the Danny Did logo on, and our kind of running joke is that if we can't educate you on the streets, we'll get you in the alleys. So we're willing to try anything to raise awareness. And the other kind of point of focus beyond that is the idea of intervention. And until we find out exactly what causes SUDEP, kind of the concept of keeping kids or adult patients safe day to day and night to night. Most cases of SUDEP, like Danny's, the person is found in bed. And so this idea of intervention and what can facilitate that. So we've gravitated towards any kinds of epilepsy technologies that can help to alert somebody, with the thought that if someone is present hopefully there will be a better outcome than if they're experiencing the seizure alone, especially for nocturnal seizures. So we really think they can be a complement to medication or diet, or if someone has had surgery. Certainly it can be helpful in the instance where somebody needs emergency medication delivered. There's all these potential helpful effects of being alerted. And so we help counsel and help families navigate their options when it comes to detection devices. And if they can't afford them, then we provide grants that help to enable those. So we do that all over the country, and I think we've done it in 17 countries outside the U.S. So we've grown the program quite wide, and hopefully at some point these things will be covered by insurance and all FDA approved, and there won't be as much of a need for what we do. But until then, we're here to help fill the gap and get these resources out to people. In terms of our infrastructure, we have a small team. There's 3 full-time staff. So it's myself, Mary Duffy, who's our executive director, and then we have a programs manager, Katie Gaughan, who facilitates our device program. And we always say, we want to play bigger than our size. We don't think we need to be a huge organization in order to have an impact. And so we try to we have that motto and spirit about us. We have a board of directors, we have an associate board, we have a family ambassadors program, and all of those are meant to kind of expand our footprint beyond Chicago, beyond the Midwest, so that we can reach more communities and more families can find out about who we are. And then one of the questions that Gardner had posed to us was, where have we found success? I think there's so much work to do, and that's why it's great to have, different organizations pushing towards filling all the gaps that need to be filled. But I think one area we've found success is connecting with families. And I think that's because we do things in a very personal way, parent to parent, and try to be very personal and kind of human about how we go about counseling people and helping them navigate. And the reason is because we remember very well about how that first seizure experience felt, and going to the ER, or obviously the crushing blow of losing a loved one. Those are all real visceral memories that we have. And so it helps us to connect with families who might be experiencing some of those things now. But really our end goal is to help give information about resources that can help parents or patients to make better, more fully informed decisions, to remove some of the blind spots. And so a lot of what we do is pointing people to other resources. If we don't do a particular service, we'll point them to Cure, or to the groups on this call, or the PAME organization, or the Epilepsy Foundation. We really want to stay true to our kind of niche, and not try to expand and do too much. So we kind of gauge ourselves, by the testimonies that we get from families and parents, and by the relationships that we form, the connections that we keep over time with the families that we support. That's really our ultimate benchmark as to how we're doing. And we're going to keep going. We always say that Danny's new presence in the world is the Danny Did Foundation. And so that's what kind of keeps us motivated to keep plugging away. So that's kind of our story.
It's an amazing story. And I still, like, whenever I fly, I live in Washington, and whenever I fly out of national, I'm like, I see Danny on this huge billboard, and I cannot believe you all have been able to do that across the country. It's incredible. Thank you for all that you all have done and continue to do. I mean, hearing all of you speak, it's you make it seem so easy, like, oh, here we've just had this really tragic event happen, oh, here I'm looking at you, Heather, because I know you're not a parent, but you working very closely with a family that's been hugely impacted. You make it seem so easy finding your purpose and organizing and creating impact, whether it's in your communities or, across the country. Kind of would like to dig in just for a little bit into like the challenges, because I don't know who's on this webinar, but I imagine there are other families like us that are thinking, how can I get involved? Should I start my own organization? Can you maybe, Heather, start with sharing like what are some of the challenges you all had in starting the Cameron Boyce Foundation? You're on mute.
Sorry. I think there's many challenges. I'm sure we'll all attest to that. I think a big one is really the lack of kind of awareness and kind of embracing of the epilepsy community. Let's say, as you would see in, if you have, cancer, there's a lot of celebration and colors, and people really kind of are out there and you see it and you're not afraid to talk about it. I think there is still a huge stigma associated with epilepsy. Which makes people not want to talk about it as much. It's kind of kept in the dark. I think that is where we're trying to crack a bit to get people to be like, no, you have epilepsy. Okay, let's talk about it. Let's get it out there. So that really puts a barrier, I think, to fundraising, right? So I think it is much harder to fundraise for epilepsy because of this issue. I think it's always harder in the health arena, let's say, than say, some of the arts, even, to get people to invest in things like education and awareness outside of just research. So I think for us, the challenge has been to really establish a base of epilepsy funders. And I think I'm just really excited to be on this panel because I'm hearing about these other smaller foundations. And I think a lot of these smaller foundations like ours will pop up, and there's a lot of us out there. So it is a challenge because I think a lot of us are working in kind of similar spaces. And so I'm excited to figure out ways to work together more so that we can all kind of elevate everything from fundraising, but also to impact.
Thanks. I totally agree. And I just want to encourage people watching to put in any questions. I see one that I will come back to in a little bit. I just want to give some others to weigh in on challenges. Heather, you really talked about super important challenges in the epilepsy space overall around stigma and how that drives so much. Edena, I don't know. I would love for you to speak to a challenge, and you can tell me whatever was on your mind. But one thing I am curious, you don't need to answer this, maybe someone else can, is just the personal challenge of taking this issue on every single day. It's hard.
Yeah. So I would say the first challenge I would say is that once something in your heart, and I think Paul alluded to this too, but something in your heart triggers that I want to do something, I realized, even though I would love to do this full time, that I could not. How do we start? And so for me, it was, okay, start with where we are. We have a vibrant church community. And so it was, let's start with the scholarship. And then once we started with the scholarship, someone gave us the name of an attorney who helped us do the paperwork. But so for us, it is that challenge, the balance of our work life, our personal life, and dealing with the loss of your loved one. All of that is coming together. But because there is a focus, it kind of pushes you and gives you that energy to just continue to go on. But I'd say those first couple of years, we were probably, at least me, I was operating probably just surviving enough to get some of the things done. And then as my grief, I was managing my grief in a different way, then I had more energy. But it was kind of like the foundation and the scholarship gave me a purpose, a reason to get up. But it definitely was a challenging, but also rewarding. Like, yeah. I can be up at night and I don't feel that I'm up late working on something for the foundation. I don't feel as though it's sapping my energy because, and I think one of the other, all of the participants talked about, this is Kayla's legacy. And so it's going to help. It's helping people. And that is the motivation, despite the fact that, after 5 o'clock, I have to fix dinner and then move to, okay, what are we doing for the foundation? So
Yeah.
that's,
I think you're totally right about there's real purpose in this work, right? And then we get a lot out of, and often I think in the grief work that happens, they talk about finding meaning in tragedy and how that sort of can fuel us. So I'm hearing that from you and appreciating that. Paul, maybe I shouldn't just focus on challenges, but I'm curious, like, this problem is a lot to tackle. You're in Mississippi, you're the only one sort of doing this work. How did you go through the process of organizing a board and determining your priorities?
That actually was pretty easy, believe it or not. I mean, we were so fortunate to have so many people that we're close to. So forming the board worked out to be really easy. And matter of fact, we have a really large contingent of people, and we actually looking at going through and putting another board level on, because we don't want to discourage any participation, right? I mean, we want to bring them in any way that they want to be utilized. So that part went well. And the other part, there wasn't anything around here, so that kind of made it easy to try to go forward and have it. And for some reason, we talk about this, is I think sometimes we go where we're put. And I think, I think with all of us who have lost somebody, it seems like there's a higher purpose in all this. It's not just your loss, but you want to see that other people don't have the same issues if we can do anything about it. I keep thinking, when Jerry Lewis got involved with muscular dystrophy, it wasn't but about 12 years later that there was a couple of forms of muscular dystrophy that were no longer a big problem. People could live a full life with them, and that they could, it didn't take care of all of them, but it took care of some. And I think we do what we can do when we can do it. And I saw this really nobody. I guess what I didn't really see that was a surprise to me was there was really nobody advocating locally. And the state did at that time have a pretty active epilepsy foundation, but they were very small and they're very thinly spread out. We've seen this over and over. And so my thinking with all of these groups is that we can all use all the help we can get, but people can use all the help we can give as well. And so having said that, now I'll give you an example. We've had to go up to the legislature several times for things, and I never dreamed it would take this direction. But, and I'll go into something. Medical marijuana was a big deal just a few years ago in Mississippi. I was recruited to be on the advisory board for it. I did. At the time Jenna passed away, we were told shortly before that she was refractory. Okay. So you look around and there's nothing left on the shelf when you get that diagnosis. So what do? You want to try what you can try. And the only thing that has shown anything outside of the pharmaceuticals we've got is a number of people have been successful with medical marijuana. And once they get that refractory diagnosis, bottom line is, I think it's like a right to try drug. If there's something out there and you're having an issue, I don't use it, but you want basically, to me, you want all the tools in the toolbox for
Mhm.
your epilepsy patients. And if that involves the use of, then you want it to be available and you want it to be safe. And you want it to be through somebody who's very knowledgeable about
Yeah.
how to use it effectively. Right. So we did this, and I did this press. I'd never done a press conference in my life, but we did a bunch of them, and then that vote passed the most successful yes vote for medical marijuana vote in the nation. Okay,
Wow.
and it just, like I said, you can come down for it on one way or the other, but basically 3 out of 4 Mississippians who voted for it.
That's
And
amazing.
so it was a big deal. We won over a lot of politicians because after that, our Supreme Court kind of did away with the initiative just like that. But the governor fortunately called the legislature in the special session, and it was a very strong 90+%.
That's amazing. And I mean, using the power of your story to advance legislation is incredible. And we've seen examples of that in the country. And so around different priorities, like Tom, you guys have also been involved in legislative work. I'm wondering, Tom, like you guys have been at this for so long, like, and now that this landscape has changed and you told me recently you thought there were maybe 20 some family-led organizations focused solely on SUDEP. What do you think the opportunity is for these groups to work together? Like, where is the opportunity to really advance change collectively on a larger scale?
Yeah, I think the first step towards that is to really find a niche that is meaningful and that you feel like you can do well. I know that's kind of what we did when we started, was just try to assess who was doing what. A few people have mentioned the work that Cure does in research, and the Epilepsy Foundation does with, say, schools or workplace issues or discrimination issues. So I think complementing each other is kind of the approach that we try to take. It's why we do so many partnerships, because we recognize there's most of the things that need doing we don't do. We're really hyper focused on a couple of very specific lanes, and so I think the more we can figure out, okay, this organization covers this need and that one covers another. That I think that's very helpful towards making sure that the whole landscape is kind of as congruent as it can be.
Yeah, I agree. Well, so we only have a few minutes left. I'm curious what advice you all have for other families that might want to get more involved in these issues. What do you, Heather, starting with you, what do you think? Just, quickly, we'll go around. What advice do you have?
I think I would, kind of use the inspiration of what you're inspired by to find what you're passionate about, what you think you could make a dent in. Look at the landscape that's already out there doing amazing work, and either join someone that's already doing the great work or figure out what the gap is and tackle that.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I don't know who can top that. What other?
Right.
Yeah. What other advice do you have for, others that are recently bereaved, or, for all of us who've sort of been at this, and what should we be doing differently? What are your thoughts?
I mean, one thing I would say is just to kind of, if you are bereaved, be patient and graceful with yourself when you're trying to start an organization. I think Paul and Edena mentioned this is, in essence, at least at the outset, it's grief work. And I know for my brother, it was what kept him going literally to, get up every day, was this sense that, we were going to start something that had a purpose moving forward. And I know when things don't go exactly as maybe you envision, it can feel very personal or hurtful. You want things to move forward more quickly than maybe medicine does or public policy does. So I think just having the grace to accept some of that and to keep moving forward. You know, I think what differentiates us is our urgency, our sense of urgency because of the experiences we've had, and trying to mesh that with some of the realities of starting a small business and becoming advocates. It takes some patience.
And there's no one way to do any of it, right? You all are doing very different work in different parts of the country. And I think you don't need to be an organization to have impact. I think being brave to share a story can do so much. And like Heather, you said, there are lots of organizations to get involved with, right? And so doesn't need to be doing all of this.
I would just like to add two things. One, I think it's important to, again, seek information from the organizations such as PAME, such as Epilepsy Foundation, and the organizations that you're hearing about. But also, I think, especially if you're recently bereaved, one of the things is trying to find a way to honor your loved one. And so I would start small with, what things my family member enjoyed that I lost, what things can we do first as a family to honor them and create a new memory surrounding that. And then that can evolve into some other things. You can include your friends, and you could have discussions with your friends about, you know what, I think I may want to do this. And so I think an organic approach, which representing where you are in your grief process, as well as having a desire to do something that will bring great memories and honor your loved one, is something to think about as well.
That's great advice. I think all of you are doing that, speaking to the heart of our 4 children here that we're talking about, Kayla and Jenna and Cameron and Danny. I mean, I just, you're just so grateful for all of you to being here and sharing these amazing individual stories and inspiring hope and change. And I'm just grateful. So in the chat, you see there are links to all these organizations. So I hope folks who are on this webinar can check out your organizations and see the work that you're doing and get involved where it inspires you and speaks to you. I hope everyone knows too, just going to transition to the end here a little bit, but the PAME conference is coming up. So I hope you all can join us there. We're going to have a half day on the November 29th that is really focused only on families and bereaved families. And that's going to be a super inspiring panel. And then the next full day will be the PAME conference with all of our stakeholders. So anyway, you can still register. You find out all that information online. And there's still opportunity to sponsor the PAME conference if you are so interested. You know, PAME is run essentially by volunteers, except for AES, who generously provides in-kind staffing support. So anyway, every penny raised does go directly to educational opportunities. But most importantly, I just want to thank the 4 of you. You were amazing speakers, and your work is important and impactful, and you have created profound legacies for your loved ones and are demonstrating how to make a difference in our communities and our country, really, in fighting SUDEP. So thank all of you for being here today. And I look forward to working with all of you to figure out how we continue to better collaborate to address all these gaps. So thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great day.